Well, hello. Welcome back to America's Real Estate Show. We are so excited that you are here with us today and incredibly grateful that you have decided to share your time with us. If you're new, welcome. I'm Ashley, your host, and we bring top producers from across the country right here to our studio in Chicago every single Friday at 11 a.m. Central. And today we have a phenomenal young woman who has just absolutely crushed every single goal, achievement, milestone out there, and I cannot wait for you to meet her. So I'm going to say hello to Alyssa Flores.
Hi.
Hello, Alyssa.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for making this journey all the way from San Diego. I know that takes a couple of hours to get here, right?
Yes, I think it was about a 4-hour flight.
About a 4-hour flight. So thank you so much for taking the time. We are incredibly grateful. And you have just done amazing things in your very short career. So I just want to let everyone know right from the beginning, you are still considered a rookie agent. You just finished your second year in the business, and it is hard to believe that you have already closed over $31 million in sales. That is incredible. Congratulations on all of your success.
Thank you.
And I mean, just to put it in perspective for everybody, I did a little research, and did you know that the national average is agents between 1 and 2 years, so their first and second years, are closing 0 homes or 4. So somewhere in between 0 to 4 homes in a year.
Wow.
And by the end of your second year, you've already surpassed over 30 million. So, I mean, how does that make you feel just hearing that?
Yeah, hearing that, that's crazy. I mean, I keep hearing that from people like, you know, telling me you've done such a great job, but sometimes it doesn't feel surreal.
Right, you feel like, well, what? Like, I'm just out here doing what I do, right?
Yeah.
So I want you to know what a huge accomplishment that is. So let that sink in, and I hope that you really take time to say, man, you know what? I did this. I knocked it out of the park. So behind every top producer's story, there's always a journey, right? So I would love to start our conversation with you deciding to join the military, which is so unique and fabulous and fascinating. I've never personally met anybody who's been in the Navy. You chose to go into the Navy. So if you would take just a minute and take us back to that younger Alyssa. You know, I think you were about 18 years old at that time when you decided to join the Navy.
Yeah, so I was actually 17.
Oh, 17.
When I decided to join, I signed up and everything. I signed up at 17. I ended up leaving a month after I turned 18. Went to boot camp, and yeah, just joined the military.
So, I mean, what led to that decision? I mean, I remember you talking about there was a career day at school, and you took time to really visit all the different branches before you decided on the Navy. So how did all of that come about?
Yeah, so I knew I wanted to join, you know, one of the branches. I didn't know which one I wanted to join. I always knew I wanted to join the military. My dad always, you know, pushed me to do it. All the benefits that you get, you know, you don't have to pay for college. That was a huge thing for me. You know, we didn't have a lot of money growing up, so college wasn't really a factor. So yeah, that's when I decided, okay, I'm gonna join the military. I went to the career day, a couple of different booths. Ultimately, the Navy recruiter was the coolest. And you know, I thought about it. I was like, I do like the water. You do get to travel the most. You know, I had never really traveled besides California, Nevada, and Mexico. So I knew that, you know, with the Navy, you travel the most out of all the branches. So that's how I joined the Navy.
Well, so obviously there's an adventurous side to you, and there was probably something within you that said, you know what, this is going to give me an opportunity to see the world, right? And I mean, again, there's all the other branches. So shout out to whoever the gentleman was that probably looked the coolest that day, right? So he was like, yes, you need to be in the Navy.
Yeah, I still keep in contact with him too.
I love that. I hope hope he's watching. What's his name?
Hill is his last name.
I love it.
I don't know if he's still in or not. I haven't talked to him for maybe like 2 years.
Well, that's awesome. Well, he played a huge role
Yeah.
in really changing your life.
Yes,
So
for sure.
make sure that he knows that you were on this show. I love it. I love it. So now, how long did you end up serving in the Navy?
So the short answer, about almost 9 years. The
9
long answer,
years.
8 years, 9 months, I think like 17 days, something like that.
Okay, well, look at you. 9 years, 17 days, how many minutes? So when you think back on that time, and you know what, I want to just pause for a minute to say thank you. Thank you so much for your service to our country. I mean, and we just finished, celebrating the 4th of July. So thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.
We're so grateful. When you look back on that time, is there a certain memory that comes to mind that maybe was your most favorite part about being in the Navy?
I think for me, deployments. A lot of people don't like deployments. I was single at that time, so deployments, it wasn't anything crazy to me. I just loved the routine of everything, doing the same thing over and over again, working out every day. So every time I would be back from deployment, I was skinny. The traveling, that's the best part, is you're working hard, on the ship, but then you get to pull into ports and, you get to have fun, sightsee, try new foods, travel, party, all that.
And I love it. I love it. Where were you deployed?
The first one, we did a South America tour. The second one, it was in the Middle East.
Okay, and how long were you at sea?
The first deployment, I think it was a short one. It was only like 4 or 5 months. The second one was a longer one. It was about 7 months.
Wow.
But in between, we're not out to sea the whole time. We're pulling into different ports.
Right. Oh my gosh, what an amazing experience for you. All right, so now I'm going to think back to how you ended up, actually being deployed. You had to go through boot camp first. I've never known anyone that's gone through boot camp. So is there maybe a story that I know you probably have to keep lots of things, under wraps and that we can't know about, but is there maybe something fun that you can remember? I don't know, fun and boot camp probably don't go together, but maybe a really interesting story that you could share with us that happened during boot camp?
Yeah. It's crazy, actually. So boot camp, my Navy boot camp was here in Chicago.
Okay.
So that was my first time ever getting on a plane. So that was interesting, seeing, how, what is it called? Flat it is here compared to, California and Nevada. But a funny story, in boot camp, we were very limited with our resources. The girls, the women, we couldn't wear makeup. We had short hair. So we did have a couple of things that we could use to our advantage, or at least I did. We got a sewing kit, and it was to, sew any clothes that you had that needed to be sewed or anything like that. So since we didn't have any makeup, I used the sewing kit to thread other girls' eyebrows.
Oh.
And in return, they would either shine my boots or do my homework or fold my clothes.
I love it. I love it. You definitely learned the art of negotiation, right? You were like, okay, let's figure out a little trade. I like that. So you found a way to get through boot camp.
Yeah, work smarter, not harder.
That's right. Work smarter, not harder, which I'm sure you use in your business today, right? Just thinking about creative ways.
Thinking outside of the box.
Yeah, definitely thinking outside of the box. So I remember one thing that you shared with me is when you go into the military that they really are kind of programmed to break you down to build you back up. So can you think of maybe one story or one lesson, something that you really learned in that process that you still use today, in your life, in your business, that all of us can learn from, because we haven't been through boot camp. So I'm sure that there's some things that you really learned that continue to serve you.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of it I did try to block out, and it was a long time ago. But a couple of things, attention to detail was huge. Repetition, we did a lot of repetition drills, and so any little thing that's out of place. I mean, maybe OC now or OCD, but repetition. Also learning how to communicate with other people and other backgrounds or different personalities, watching their body language, making eye contact. So those are some of the things that I feel like benefit me now as a realtor.
Definitely. So, I mean, speaking about that, what about, did you learn anything about how to read people or read situations that you feel really serve you today in your business? Because I can only imagine, right, if you're working a deal, if it's getting ready to fall through, or you have clients that are stressed out, you know, I mean, in life and in our business, I mean, things are not always in a straight line, right? We have to shift quickly. So I would just be so curious to know if there were certain things that you learned in your military training that help you today to maybe, you know, shift your mindset quickly or size up a situation. So anything that you can teach us there?
I think body language is a huge one. You know, just watching somebody as they're maybe looking around a property, seeing, kind of reading their mind a little bit. Yeah, body language is a huge one. Trying to think of a couple of other ones.
Well, when it comes to body language, like, can you give us a couple of ideas, like some cues of things that kind of stand out for you?
I think first initial meeting, seeing if somebody's closed off, you know, how they introduce themselves, you know, the first initial conversation. I can always tell if a client, you know, if I'm interviewing or if clients are interviewing me, I can always tell whether, you know, they already have their mind made up or if they're still open just by that initial, you know, first couple of seconds.
That's so interesting. So, I mean, so how do you know? What's like the cue if you're like, okay, they're out the door, like they're deciding that they're going to go a different direction, or, you know, okay, this is going to be a great partnership. What kind of comes up for you?
I think facial expressions, you know, if their hands crossed, if they're happy, if they're smiling, if they're looking at you, and, you know, you can tell when you're looking at somebody and you're speaking to them and they're understanding and they're, you know, comprehending and they're following you. Other times, you know, some people might be looking around or on their phone. On their phone is a huge one. You know, if you're talking to somebody and they're on their phone, I don't like when people do that to me, so I never do that to, you know, to my clients.
Right. So when let's just say you're in that situation, you're having a meeting, and this is maybe like a first time consultation, or okay, and they're, you know, they're kind of looking at their phone, not really paying attention. Is there anything that you do in that situation to try to regain control? Do you pause? Do you ask them a question? What do you kind of do to kind of maybe reset? I'm going to say just kind of reset the energy, maybe just kind of bring it back to neutral.
Yeah, I always ask them a question so that way they have to think of an answer.
Yeah, make their mind start working.
Exactly.
Yeah, get them kind of off looking at their phone.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm with you. So how about I can only imagine, again, being in the military, going through boot camp, being deployed, like you had to learn how to be mentally tough. So was there any type of strategy or strategies that they taught you on how to do that? Because I know just in our everyday life, we need that. There's always something that's going to happen that is unexpected, didn't go our way, right? So is there anything that you learned that could help all of us maybe reshift and get ourselves back to neutral?
Yeah, we have a term, it's called military bearing, where you're pretty much just completely blank. You know, and in boot camp, you know, you have people yelling at you in your face, you know, screaming at you, calling you names, whatever, and you just have to keep a completely blank face. So we always say, you know, the term like, keep your military bearing. So in situations like that where I, you know, have a stressful situation, sometimes I do, you know, cry it out, or I feel overwhelmed. But other than that, when I'm making a decision, I always step away from the problem, do something else, get it out of my mind, you know, go back to normal, and then I go back to the problem and think of a solution or an answer, anything like that.
So, I mean, I thank you for sharing that you even find yourself getting overwhelmed, right? Because, gosh, I mean, being in the military, I mean, you have to, keep that composure, right? So, what do you kind of do to step away from a situation? How do you just get, those, I'm just going to call them like thought loops, those thought loops that go on in our mind. Like, how do you kind of break that cycle and get out of that and just kind of cut the negative energy and move on, right? So that you can get back, like you said, okay, I'm going to get back to neutral so I can get focused and get your brain to start thinking about how it's going to resolve the situation, right? Because it's really hard for us to solve any type of problem if our mind is chaotic, right? So how do you kind of calm your nervous system down, your brain down, to kind of get back to that place of neutral?
Usually I do something physical.
Okay.
Cleaning is a huge one for me.
I love to clean. I know if I start doing loads of laundry, my husband's like, "What's going on?" Right?
Yep. If the house is completely clean, then you know I have stuff on my mind.
Right.
Yeah. So something physical. Some people go to the gym, listen to music, but for me, yeah, it's usually cleaning.
I know. Why do you think that is? Is there something about just getting our mind and our body just in a different state? Is that what you think does it?
I think you really just have to like shift everything, your body, your mind, everything. Get completely away from the problem. Even sometimes, if I have a really bad problem, I just put my phone away and then I go clean or do whatever and then get back to it. Do you have like a rule, like, okay, I'm giving myself 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes? I think it's more of like time blocking.
Okay.
Yeah, so like after 6 p.m., then I'm like, I don't want to talk about the problem. I don't want to think about the problem. I'm going to be with my family, watch my shows, get out of that mindset, and then go back to it. Okay.
All right. So let's visit about when you decided to buy your first home. And I find it so interesting because you shared with me that everybody in your life, your friends, your family, your coworkers, like everybody was telling you, don't buy a house. So that is very fascinating to me. So what do you think that was about? Why wasn't anybody in your corner cheering you on and being like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I'm so excited for you. They're going to buy a home.
Yeah, I think for my family, mostly some of my friends that hadn't owned property, I think it's just limiting beliefs. They didn't think it was possible, or I was single at the time, so they were saying, why do you need to buy a house? You're single, you don't have a family yet, you're too young. I think it's just they were uneducated. But now they see the growth and they're like, okay, we listen to you.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, gosh, what gave you the courage to just block out all of that noise and just say, nope, you know what? I'm going to follow my own intuition. I want to purchase a home. I'm going to go for it. Because I know that could be scary, especially if it's, our loved ones, people who really care about us. And I think this is an important point, really just to kind of emphasize is how do we block that noise out when we know in our heart and our gut that we're supposed to be going in a certain direction. And in this example, for you, it was, I want to buy a home.
Yeah, it was just trust your intuition. I knew that I had already made really good decisions in my life, that thus far. So I was like, I'm going to trust myself.
Yeah, trust yourself. So now you had the ability and the opportunity to purchase a home because of the VA loan.
Yes.
And when you were going through this process, I mean, it changed your life on so many levels. Not only did you have the ability to buy a home, but there was a fire that was just lit inside of you going through this process. Yes. And it really changed the whole course of what would then happen next in your career.
Exactly.
So you decided, all right, I think that I'm ready to make a career change. So can you walk us through that process of what it was like when you learned about the VA loan? Because I know you shared with me, you actually learned more about it at a seminar than you actually did while you were in the military.
Yes.
So take us through that process and what just kind of happened inside of you that said, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. I want to help more people.
Yeah, so I was always interested in real estate. Even on deployment, we would be watching HGTV.
I love that.
So I was always interested in it. But once I went through the process and I stumbled upon that VA seminar online, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go. I'm going to check it out. Free food, I'll learn something. That's when it really clicked. Like, we don't get taught any of this information, while we're in, or even before you're separating. All they say is, hey, you have the VA loan, 0% down. That's it. Have fun with it. They don't teach you anything else about it. So once I went to that seminar, I was like, wow, this is a really powerful tool, and nobody knows about it, really. Like, we don't really get taught it. So that's when I, really became interested in it, and that's pretty much what started everything.
That is so fascinating. So, I mean, should we just take a moment? I really want to emphasize, to all the agents that are watching today, they might be making the assumption that if someone is in the military, that they already know everything there is to know about the VA loan. And so, do you want to take an opportunity to share with them again that isn't actually the case necessarily?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, we definitely don't get taught anything. Like I said, the only thing we ever got taught was you have the VA loan, 0% down. People don't even know that you could use it multiple times. So I come across a lot of, active duty or veterans that they think they can only use it once they get out, or they can only use it one time. And yeah, it's an amazing benefit for everybody.
So what I'm hearing you say is that there's a huge opportunity for education. So everybody listening today, all the agents who are watching, listening from around the country, you want them to know, educate, take the opportunity. If this is something that they're passionate about, that there is a lot of education that can be had, for sure.
Exactly.
Okay, I love that. So now let's just fast forward a little bit. You're a real estate agent at this point. You're starting out. I'm just going to kind of take us back to when you were starting out. You had a mentor that you were assigned, at the very first brokerage that you were with, and you are just trying everything that your mentor told you to do. You're trying open houses, you're trying cold calls, you're trying all the things, right? And just nothing is really clicking for you. You probably were maybe feeling a little discouraged, a little frustrated. I remember you saying you had called like literally thousands of leads and like nothing, right? Is that fair to say?
Yes.
So I want to know, was there a moment, can you remember this aha moment that you had, that you were like, okay, this is not working. I need to shift directions and I need to figure out what my lane is. Can you remember that moment?
Absolutely. I tell the story all the time to people as well. I was at another brokerage, and like you said, I was in the mentorship program. And I remember the mentorship program there, they wouldn't really show you how to do anything. They would just kind of tell you, cold call these people, do this open house with this person. So me being a new agent, I didn't know any better. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. I don't know what I don't know, right?
Right.
And we were at this mentorship meeting, and the mentor was going around asking everybody. And we didn't get to choose the mentor. They just assigned us a mentor with, I think it was maybe 10 other people. So she was going around asking, how many transactions do you want to do this year? And I remember somebody had said, I did 3 last year, so I want to double that, and I want to do 6 this year. And to me, that was a huge red flag. In my brain, I was like, that's okay for, some people, but for me, I have, very, very high goals for myself, and I know I could push myself to do better than that. So I was just like, I don't think this is the group that I need to be a part of, or the brokerage that I need to be a part of.
Right. Well, good for you for recognizing that, right? I mean, a lot of other people might have just said, well, this is what they're telling me to do, so it must work because they're my mentor. They must have the experience.
Exactly.
But you followed your intuition again, and just, I'm picturing this, right? You're sitting in a group of people, of other agents, and someone's, shares their goal, but you knew that wasn't enough for you. You were like, no, I'm going to crush it, which, by the way, you have. So if we just go back to the beginning of what we were saying, the national average in their first 1 to 2 years, the most that they're closing is 4 homes, right? And so that agent was kind of in that place, right? So good for you for saying, no, I have got to go find another group of people that are going to take me to other heights, right? And so, I mean, how important would you say it is to make sure that you really are with the right mentor? And how do you know when it is the right fit?
I don't think you really know if it's the right fit or not, because you can learn something from everybody, and I truly believe that. You know, a good mentor, a bad mentor, you can learn what not to do, what to do, right? But yes, it's extremely important, because when you're surrounded by other people who are doing well, you look up to them and you want to be just like them. And that's, for me, that's how I grow, is I have to be around other people who are constantly growing.
Right. We want to be with people that are at the top of their game too, right? Because that pushes us to want to go higher and achieve more. So I know we're not going to name names, but I do find it very interesting because you shared with me, you learned later after you left that particular brokerage that your mentor, that you had surpassed your mentor, what that person had done in their production, you had far surpassed what she had done in her career.
Yes.
So I think, let's just take a moment to educate agents that are out there right now, because there might be a lot of newer agents who are watching. Pay attention to who is teaching you. Find out truly how many units they're closing a year, right? What are maybe some things that you could share with maybe agents that are newer in the business that they don't, like you said earlier, you don't know what you don't know. So what are some things that maybe you could share with them? Like, hey, pay attention to these things when you're around people who are teaching you.
Yeah, I mean, it's also not only the mentors, you have to do the activity as well. So, in that situation, I felt like I was doing all the activity, but I wasn't seeing anything. So that's when I decided to make the change. So I think that's also very important as well.
Right. So you're saying, of course, do the activity, but recognize, because like you said, you were doing the open houses, you were doing the phone calls, you were putting in the hours, you were putting in the reps, as we say, right? But you weren't seeing the results. So there was obviously a misalignment somewhere. And so you need to be able to recognize when that's happening so that you can shift.
Exactly.
So you decided to completely shift gears and go all in on social media. And will you tell everyone just for a minute, for a little backstory, you had already been following some real estate agents on social media before you ever even became a real estate agent. So tell us a little bit about that and what that taught you.
Yeah, so it's actually funny because one of my lenders that I work with, we were in the military together. And we both knew that we wanted to get into real estate at the same time. And so we were following, a bunch of realtors, top producers. We ended up going to it was some type of event where a bunch of top producers were there, and we were like, wow, we're not even licensed yet, and look at, we're meeting all these people, so that pushed us. But going back, following them on social media, I just looked up a bunch of people and decided to follow all of them.
Right, and there were, things that you were finding interesting about what they were doing. Share a little bit about how you make the algorithm work for you so that you can continue to see content that inspires you in your feed, because I think that's really important.
Yes. Right now my algorithm is a little messed up from my vacation, but I'm starting to get it back to real estate. But just searching, real estate agents in your area, not only agents, loan officers, escrow, title, all of that, and just continuously searching, going to their followers, who do they engage with, who are they tagged with, and just following all of them.
And you're clicking, that you're interested, so that the algorithm knows to keep sending you that type of information.
Yes,
exactly. Okay. So, your gamble paid off. You had no idea if going all in on social media was going to work, but you'd already tried all these other things, so you figured, well, why not, right? And so I just want to remind you, because I think this is another really cool statistic, that by the end of your second year, you had already increased your business by nearly 70%. nearly 70%. So that is awesome. So congratulations again on following your intuition and going all in, and you figured it out. So now I want to take everybody on the journey, since we know that social media is where you decided to really pick your lane. I call it the zone of genius. And I want to take us into just kind of like a little story time. So I'm going to call this like where story meets strategy. Okay. And you are a phenomenal storyteller on social media. And again, people can do social media in all sorts of different ways, right? There is no one way. So today's show is all about you and what has worked for you, and you are an amazing storyteller. So we thought it would be really fun to walk through some different examples so that we can hopefully give all the agents who are watching and listening today some ideas. We want to just get those ideas going. So let's start out with our very first example that we're going to call like the credit score drop. And I'm just going to read off some cool stats on how well this reel did. So you had over 700,000 views on this reel, over 7,400 likes, 19 hours of watch time, over 100 comments, over 300 saves, and over 100 shares. That is phenomenal. So tell us about this reel that you created. What was it all about?
Yeah, so the reel, and a lot of agents, a lot of new agents, you know, they have this problem where they don't know what to post as content. The reel was just me setting up a key day celebration. I wasn't dressed up, you know, my clients weren't there. I was setting it up for them because we were gonna close late at night. So I was literally just in gym clothes, and I just put my camera, and I was blowing up balloons and everything. And I just said, what did I say? What was it? It was about the credit score.
Well, they were in escrow.
Yes, so they were in escrow on a property. They already had kind of low credit score, but they had an unexpected thing happen and their credit dropped below, I think it was 525. So I had said that in the reel, in the text, and I said, instead of canceling escrow, we did this instead, ... And then I just jam-packed the caption with the story.
I love that. So what is the teaching moment for everyone in this particular type of reel? Because again, you're telling a story, you're setting up a scenario and a situation, and I love how you really kind of built that intrigue. And so you built the intrigue in the reel. You didn't tell everybody what happened, and then in the caption is where you gave all the specifics.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a couple of different teaching points. You know, everybody thinks that content has to be perfect. It has to be, you know, beautiful houses. It can just be anything as long as you have, you know, you grab somebody's attention and you provide value in it. So that's pretty much what I did. I grabbed their attention by the credit score drop. I think a lot of people, you know, unfortunately, they resonate with that. And they want to buy a house, you know, but they don't think that their credit score is going to be enough. So in the caption, you know, I put the story in there of how we were able to overcome that. Another thing I think is overcoming difficult challenges instead of just, you know, backing out of escrow. We found a creative solution and we just made it happen for them.
Yes, okay, I love that. So let's go on to example number 2. We're calling this relationships with realtors. And I wrote myself just a funny note because I thought this was hilarious. When your girlfriend is a realtor and you become an employee. I thought that was so fantastic. So I can't wait for you to tell that story. So this reel, again, had over 300,000 views, over 9,000 likes, over 300 comments, over 5,400 reshares, 1,000 saves. 1,000 saves?
I mean, it's my
what?
boyfriend, so he's good looking. So
Oh,
that's
he's
probably
good looking. So everyone's saving it because he was good looking. No, it is, I mean, because you brought such humor to this situation. So kind of set the scene for us. Like, I'm picturing it in my mind. I just think this is absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, he helps me out a lot, so I just took a bunch of little videos of him, and I wanted to make it funny. You know, when you're posting on social media, you don't want to be the same every time. You don't want to be monotone. You know, you want to show yourself as well. You want to show your family and stuff. So that's really why I wanted to do it, just make it light, funny.
Right. And so so kind of set us up. So he's like putting out open house signs for you. You're filming him. I mean, tell us about it.
Yeah, so he was putting out open house signs. He was loading them in my car, taking them out of my car, helping me every holiday. I do like these little gift bags for like my community, and I put my information on them. So every holiday he helps me, and so I just recorded him.
Right. Well, I mean, because all of us have to have someone who
Support.
is right. Support is so important. So, what do you think the teaching moment is for our agents in this story?
Ooh, I feel like there's a lot as well for that one. I mean, just on social media, making yourself look like a human. Also, anything can be content. Going back to the other one, anything can be content. Just recording little snips of everybody, and yeah.
Right, and telling a fun story.
Telling a fun story, making it relatable. I had a lot of people who were commenting like, my husband does the same thing. My husband is my employee, or I pay him with food. So a lot of people were relating to that.
Right. Well, and I mean, do you think just for your audience who's following you, what a great opportunity to show them kind of the behind the scenes. That's what I think of, right? Because people don't see all the work and the energy that goes into, an open house, a listing, just your daily activities that you're doing in your business. So I think it's always fun when you give people a kind of behind the scenes sneak peek. So I thought that was a great example. So now let's talk about house hacking.
Okay.
You've actually done several different reels on house hacking. So the first one I'll just set up. Again, you had 15,000 views on this, over 100 likes, and a ton of reshares as well. And this was kind of about a point of view. So talk to us about house hacking.
House hacking. So I've talked about a couple of different ways that I've personally house hacked. And I just tell my story, and a lot of military members in specific, they relate to it. So I continuously make that into different reels. But I did house hack when I bought my first house. Like I mentioned, I was single. It was a 3-bedroom with an office. So I rented out 2 of the other bedrooms, and I lived in the primary bedroom. They pretty much paid my mortgage. And I did that for a couple of years. And then when I got into a relationship with my now boyfriend, we bought another house, and we moved into that house. And now the first property that I bought when I was 23 or 24, I rent it out, and it's up about $300,000 in equity, and I get about $1,000 residual income from the rentals. So I always tell that story as well.
Yes. And so, I mean, what do you think really resonated with people when you told that story?
For military members, I think it helps them because they can do it too. We lived in the barracks. The barracks is kind of like an apartment, but for like military, and you have roommates. So a lot of times people are already used to having roommates, so they can do that, and they learn that they can build wealth that way.
Okay, so for this next reel, again, over 5,000 views, over 100 likes, tons of saves and reshares, and this was, I want to let you in on a little secret. So can you let us in on the little secret of this reel when you shared that all you heard from your family was it was too expensive?
Yes. So that was a huge thing when I was buying, like we mentioned. People were always telling me, you're single, why are you gonna buy? You're too young. Do you have the money? Just all of these limiting beliefs. And I think a lot of people resonate with that because a lot of times their family they also might be doing that as well. Most of the time it's, the family members who have never purchased a home before. So yeah, they just have those limiting beliefs.
Yes, and so again, what do you think the teaching moment is there? You were really sharing, I feel like, hey, don't block out the noise, you can buy, you can do it. It doesn't have to be a certain point in your life. It's when you decide.
Yeah, I mean, and it's letting them in on a secret. Like I had those people, the negative noise telling me not to buy, and I decided not to.
Yeah, okay, so reel number 3, again, and we're still on house hacking. You had over almost 300,000 views, over 700 likes, and this point of view was about a townhouse. So can you tell us about that?
Yes, so that one was, I think I was saying you bought a POV, you bought a townhouse for, I think it was 700 and, how much, or not 700, 485, because that's how much I bought my townhouse for. When everybody was telling you in 2019, the market's gonna crash, it's too expensive, it's a townhouse, why are you paying $500,000 for a townhouse? I know that's probably expensive for here in Chicago. But over there it was normal, and so everybody was, telling me all of those negative things, and then I shift in the reel to, but now it's worth, almost $800,000 in
Yes.
4 years or something like that.
So you were really showing, obviously, the growth and the equity.
Yes.
And I love how with these different reels, I think it was a lot of point of view. So do you want to just touch a little bit on, give us maybe just your little tip or secret when you are creating a reel that is specifically a POV?
I just think about like my point of view. I think about my experiences, my story, and I just want to tell it to people because everybody has a story, and you can use it in many different ways. You just got to digest it.
Right. And it's really, I think what you're doing is you're breaking down all these different scenarios that have happened in your career, and you're sharing it in a way so that your audience can identify with what you're sharing.
Exactly.
And they can see themselves in one of these situations or another, right? Okay, so let's go on to our career change example. Tell us about the career change example.
Which one?
So this was, you were telling your story about how you made a change when you were in the Navy and decided to get into real estate.
Yes, a completely different career change. I actually had a lot of people reach out to me about that resonated with them because there's such a huge thing about like when you're in the military, they want to keep you in, and so they want you to think like you're not going to be able to make it out there, and it's going to be so hard, and how real estate, for me, how real estate was such an oversaturated industry. So I had to hear a lot of those negative things. But then when I show that I'm successful now, a lot of people, they love that because it inspires them. They might have wanted to be getting out and separating from the military, and seeing that I've succeeded, they're like, we can do it too.
Yeah, absolutely. And just even if you're not in the military, or if you're in a different type of career, really just giving people hope that, hey, you can make a different decision in your life. If this is something that you want to pursue, go for it.
Exactly.
I think you were a living example of just go for it.
Exactly.
Right? Like, what do you have to lose?
Exactly.
All right, so let's go to our next example, which we're going to call the AT&T rep turned duplex buyer. I love this. It had over 6,000 views, over 100 likes, and many, many, many shares. This was another POV reel. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so this one kind of also ties into like limiting beliefs. The buyers, they didn't believe that they could qualify, and they just they were renting for 7 years. They were renting a duplex, so they were in the back unit, somebody else was in the front unit. And they didn't think that they were going to qualify. They had been talking to my loan officer for about a year, and when the property manager had told him, hey, we're going to sell the property, either you can, move out, or you can buy it, or continue renting, but it's going to be a different price, right? So that's when my buyer, they decided, let me try to get qualified. So they ended up getting qualified. We bought the duplex from the property manager, got them a crazy deal. And yeah, they didn't believe that they could do it. They did a down payment of 3.5%. They thought that they had to have 20% down, and very, very happy about it.
See how exciting. You're just giving tons of people hope with every single one of these stories that you're putting out, because you're sharing all types of different situations and scenarios that someone could find themselves in.
Exactly.
So I love this one. We're calling this the 12-day escrow. This is so awesome. Another POV. So this one had over 6,000 views, over 100 likes, and tons of reshares. So tell us about this one.
Yeah, so this one, it was a point of view of, You meet me, within 1 day you get pre-approved, and within 21 days you are now getting the keys to your new property. So that was the real, and the situation was my buyer, she was coming from Italy. She had been talking to another realtor and another loan officer. They weren't really giving her the time of day. They were taking 2 weeks on a pre-approval. I had a conversation with her. She actually reached out to me on Facebook because I had posted a open house that I was doing in one of the group pages that I'm on. So she reached out to me. She said she liked the open house. So I told her, I gave her the information. I said, hey, I know you have a realtor. Just if they stop by, or let me know if they don't stop by, I'll send you videos. She didn't even tell me that her realtor stopped by or not. I don't think that they stopped by. So I just sent her, I had some downtime in the open house, and I just sent her videos of the property, and she really liked that. She didn't have to ask me or anything. So we had a conversation, and she decided to work with me instead.
So what do you think the teaching moment is in sharing that story? First of all, that's an awesome hook, right? 12 days, right? Start to finish. And this person wasn't even here.
No, she wasn't here.
Right?
Yes.
So, what an amazing way of telling that story to show how you've gone the extra mile for your clients, right? And how you were able to get her through that whole process quickly.
Yeah. And
she wasn't here, so you were taking video of different properties, doing different tours for her, and sending her videos.
Yes. Yeah, I felt deeply because, she had said that she was in a situation, her realtor wasn't really helping her out. Originally, I just wanted to send her the video just to help her and not really expect anything. And she ended up seeing my value from that and decided to work with me instead.
Right. So I think what we can really highlight there is just value, showing your value and going the extra mile to really serve.
Yes.
Right.
And commitment to her.
Yes.
She was on a time crunch.
100%. So that you really feel like you're a team. Your team. Okay, so this has to be one of my favorite ones, the rental open house. I think this is such a genius idea that you came up with. So tell us about the rental open house.
Okay, so the rental open house, it's kind of like a creative way because I had never heard anybody do it before. But I was looking for tenants for my property. And so a lot of people were reaching out to me, and I just didn't have the time to go show every single person. So I just decided to, post it saying as an open house for a rental. I had a lot of people come in. I ended up actually having to call my best friend to come help me because there were so many people coming through. I ended up talking to somebody who wanted to rent the property, and they wanted to sell their house. So I ended up getting the listing from him that way.
I love that. I love that because that person was going through a transition in their life. So they end up renting and you end up selling the property as well.
Yes.
I just think that's the coolest thing. So if there is anybody out there, I want them to think about doing rental open houses because you never know what could happen.
Yeah, you could get a buyer especially.
Exactly. I just thought that was such a genius idea. Okay, so I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit, and I'm going to go to another one of my favorite stories, which is your grandma's story. Let's talk about grandma for a minute because this one had over 3,000 views and over 100 likes. So tell us about grandma.
Yes, so that one, I don't really like to talk about my family too much, but that one I was telling one of my loan officers that I had a conversation with my grandma, and she was telling me that when she moved to the United States, when she was younger, her and her husband, they wanted to buy a house. And her husband's family members were telling them, don't do it. Prices are too high. Prices back then were like nothing.
Right.
Right. And so she got frustrated, because he was listening to his family, and so they never bought. When she told me that story, I had already been a realtor, so I looked up in the area that she had lived in. Prices were well over $1 million, $1.5 million for the houses over there.
Wow. So what do you think the teaching moment is there?
Going back to like my situation, don't listen to other outside factors, people who are uneducated. And also, real estate over time, no matter what, it just continues to go up.
Yes, exactly. And I think your grandma she's still in that same area, is that right? And she didn't decide to purchase. She's still running. But
Yep.
one of these days, it's going to change.
Yes.
Because you are breaking the chain in your family in such a big, bold, and beautiful way.
Yes.
So, okay, Alyssa, don't go anywhere. We're just going to take like a small little pause, and we have an opportunity to share a little mortgage minute because it's always so important to know what is going on in the market. So I'm going to bring up one of my favorite people in the whole world. She is a 30-year veteran in this industry. So if everyone would please say hello to Miss Irma De Leon, and she's going to give you our mortgage minute. All right, hello, Irma.
Your story is amazing. I absolutely love how you served our country, so thank you so much for
Thank
serving
you.
us. Yes, and you've always been very, what I got from you, just very focused, right? The military teaches you focus, commitment, discipline, routine. How
Yes.
amazing. And just thank you so much for coming here from San Diego.
Thank
And
you.
congratulations to your success. And I can't wait. I'm actually going to start following you. I haven't followed you yet, so I'm going to learn from you. So thank you again
you.
for being here, and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Irma De Leon, and I am the Executive Vice President of SunWest Mortgage, and I'm a 30-year veteran in the mortgage industry and a proud single mother of 2 amazing sons. In 1944, Franklin D. Roosevelt brought into existence the VA home loan. Since its inception, 24 million homes have been backed by VA. That's about $1 trillion in volume. There are currently 18 million veterans in the United States, and only 3.7 utilize the home loan benefit. So there is a great opportunity here to help our VA get their home loans. So here are some benefits for them so you can go out and educate them while you do your home buyer's consultation. First, no down payment. That means 0 down payment. And if you have the seller give some seller's contributions to cover the closing costs, they could literally walk in with no money at all. What a great way to give them an opportunity to home accessibility. 2, there's no PMI. What that means is their payment's going to be less. So there's no private mortgage insurance premium that they pay. What a great benefit, again, that they should be taking advantage of on this. 3, I always like to say that the V stands for very flexible. The underwriting is very flexible when it comes to serving the VA veteran with their home loan options. So as long as they're able to pay what they call their benefits on a monthly basis, I can't remember what it's called right off the top of my head right now, but as long as they have that, they're paying on a monthly basis, it doesn't exceed or exceeds a certain amount, they'll be able to qualify. So even I've approved people up to like 74% DTI, and then we're still able to get them approved. So we have a great opportunity here to help our veterans, to serve them as they served our country, and helping them get their home ownership. So if you found this helpful, please make sure that you reach out to myself or my team. You can follow me on Instagram, which is Mortgages by Irma, or on Facebook as well. So thank you so much, and don't forget to continue to thrive in 2025. Thank you.
Irma, awesome job. She is so smart. I love that. V for very flexible.
Yes.
I'm going to remember that. That was so good. Thank you for that awesome teaching moment, Irma. Please do make sure that you DM Irma. Like I said, she's been in this business for over 30 years. She knows what she's doing, and she is someone that you want on your team. And I know that's something that we talked about how important it is to have good people on your team, including an amazing loan officer, 100%. So,
Yes.
okay, as we're just kind of wrapping up today, I always love to ask if you have a favorite book or a favorite podcast that you currently listen to, that you've read, that really made an impact on your life, because I know we have agents ask all the time. They always want to know, what are the top producers watching, listening to, reading? So what are some of your favorites?
So for podcasts, Rob Dial Jr., It's called The Mindset Mentor. He drops an episode every single day. They're usually short episodes, maybe 10 to 20 minutes. But it's always about a different topic, so I like to go in there and listen to him. I've been listening to him for years now. Just in the morning time, get that morning, I don't know.
Right, get the flow going.
Yeah. And then for books, I do like, and I've actually showed this book to a lot of people. It's called Emotional Intelligence by Dr.
Travis
Phil.
Bradbury.
Travis, yes. I love this book because it's not a traditional like self-help book. It's kind of like, the way you read it is kind of like the Bible. So there's, I think, maybe 30 different chapters, and it's whatever you're feeling. And that's how they tell you should read the book. And I started doing that before I even read that that's how you're supposed to read the book. But you just go in there. I like to go in there every week, whatever I'm feeling for that week, whatever I want to learn, and I just read that chapter.
I love that. So it's just kind of like whatever lesson you need to learn in that moment,
Yes.
you can go to that part of the book.
Exactly.
So that is so cool. I hope everyone looks up that book. It sounds like it's really made a big difference in your life. So what would you say, looking back on everything, what's maybe one of the hardest truths that you've learned about being a top producer?
One of the hardest truths?
Yes,
Oh.
and being successful in this business. Everyone always wants to know, what does it take?
I think a lot of times people have the misconception that top producers have it all worked out and they know everything, but that's not true. I think we need to constantly be learning, constantly be evolving, being around other producers, learning from everybody.
Yes, I mean, we can never surround ourselves with enough amazing people, right?
Yes, and progress over perfection every time.
Ooh, I love that. Progress over perfection. That is beautiful. My last question for you before we wrap up today is, if you could go all the way back, and if you could give yourself just one piece of advice, right? Knowing what you know now, what is that one piece of advice that you would give yourself?
The first thing that comes to mind is take more risks.
Ooh,
Always. Just keep taking risks.
take more risks. I mean, I don't know. It sounds to me like you've taken a lot of
Yes.
risks in your life. So coming from you, that's like, woo, I can't even imagine what risks you haven't taken, girl. Seriously.
I mean, I think about the risks that I'm going to take before I take them, but just taking more.
Right. Take more. Okay. So is there one that's kind of on your list right now that you're like, okay, these are some risks that I want to tackle? Do you have one or two?
Yeah, I think I wish I would have started real estate a little bit earlier while I was still active duty, because I didn't get my license or I was working on my license when I was still active duty, but it was towards the end of it. So I wish I would have started a little bit before.
A little bit earlier. Okay, so how about for all the people out there who, harm avoidance is a real thing, right? Like, we want to try and stay away from anything that we think might be a little bit painful. And taking risks can feel painful.
Yes.
Right? Because we don't know what we don't know. We know what we know right now, but we don't know what's in the future. So what kind of advice would you give to all of us on how we can take more risks and just get the courage up to do it?
Yes. Oof, I don't know. I would just say just to do it. Like, if you're stagnant, you're never going to grow, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, just pushing yourself.
Yes.
Pushing yourself. I mean, there has to be something that you learned, I imagine, while you were going through boot camp, the military. I mean, something had to have changed your mindset, right? That had you now be able to take more risks that all of us can learn from. Just pushing yourself.
Yeah, you have to.
Do you have different affirmations that you say?
Not really. I do say one affirmation that I feel like works. I just say, clients come to me.
Clients come to me. Clients come
Every
to
day I
me.
just, clients come
There
to
we
me.
go.
Every day, clients come to me.
Clients come to me. I love it. Well, Alyssa, this has been such a delight having you on the show today. I loved our conversation. Thank you so much. And so we are going to say goodbye for now, but we will be back next week. And the best way to find out who our next top producer is to follow us on Instagram, America's Real Estate Show, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, America's Real Estate Show. We always release who our next superstar is, so be on the lookout. We usually wait a couple of days so that you all can just kind of pay attention out there, and we'll do a big announcement. So we can't wait to see you right back here next week, Friday, 11 a.m. Central. I'm Ashley, your host, and thank you so much for being with us today. Bye for now.